6 has many public housing and Section 8 units. How will you hold the San Francisco Housing Authority accountable and help improve conditions for those tenants?
Good question.
This is a good question. Not only are we faced with really horrible conditions in some of these buildings, we also are losing some of our Section 8 housing and our federally funded housing. As the contracts expire, they are privatized, they are actually selling off these units and they are no longer public housing. One of the things that we did at DBI, which took a while, but I think that we all should be really proud of, a lot of the tenant organizations were involved in this. I see Sarah Short out there who was part of this. One of the projects out in Bayview Hunters Point had installed vinyl siding on the sides of the walls, and it created black mold, and the tenants were all experiencing health issues. Generally, the city doesn't have authority in public housing, in Section 8 housing and HUD housing, but DBI pressured, with the help of the organization, pressured for them to remove this and remediate it. DBI has actually stepped forward to actually help them with all of their issues. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry, James was talking about bed bugs with me, so I didn't hear it.
Certainly. District 6 has many public housing and Section 8 units. How will you hold the San Francisco Housing Authority accountable and help improve conditions for those tenants?
Like I said before, I think one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we keep landlords accountable for their behaviors. I think we have to go directly to the source with people who have Section 8 housing and make sure that they get to keep their housing. Like, I've heard a lot of stories about people who the landlord's trying to evict them so that they can raise the rent, so that they can get more money for themselves. We need to go in there and stop that kind of process. We need to keep those landlords responsible for the contract they made with the people who are living there under Section 8, and when they don't, after 3 strikes, they're out and someone else runs the building.
You know, when I was a legislative intern in Supervisor Chris Daly's office, we had some complaints come in from residents in San Francisco Housing Authority buildings. So I went to the supervisor and asked him, can we have a hearing? This was one of the very first hearings that I was able to help him organize at San Francisco City Hall. We saw over 250 senior citizens come in to complain about conditions at San Francisco Housing Authority. And this was before our last executive director had left his position. Through that hearing, we saw $5 million allotted back to San Francisco Housing Authority to make changes. I have done the work. I will continue to do the work. I will continue to do the work that our great supervisor Chris Daly has been doing. Vote James Keys.
I think the simple answer is you hold people accountable to the work that they're doing. I actually found that when I got on the Board of Education that a lot of the time that I spent was not even writing policy, but actually just keeping our staff in our central office accountable to our families and students. You call them up, you tell them what's going on, you actually connect them to the families that have the complaint, and then you make sure that they are accountable to them. If they don't, if they can't do their job, you bring someone else in to do it. Sometimes, I mean, one of the things that I learned is that HR is policy. Who you hire, who you promote, who you manage is incredibly important to keeping people accountable. You look at the numbers, you look at who they're serving, you talk to your constituents, and you call up the department when they're not actually doing their job.
Jim Miko again. As Glendon was saying, hold the landlord accountable. The housing authority is the landlord. The mayor is their boss. Now, assuming we can kick him off to Sacramento and replace him, problem solved.
Well, actually, in Section 8 housing, I don't think the mayor is the boss. And we have actually right now, we have, I think it's right now 5 years waiting list to get into Section 8 housing. So we need to not continue to depend on Section 8 housing. We need to build more low-income housing ourselves, which we do have more control over. But in other public housing projects in areas in the city, when I was on the police commission, we actually formed relationships with the Public Housing Authority itself to do additional security within public housing. It was a memorandum of understanding. There's no reason we couldn't do the same thing with the building inspection department and other departments in the city to provide some local oversight for these facilities that are not owned or managed locally. So I would try to move toward that immediately so that we could actually get into them, provide some oversight, and then provide some guidance, at least to the extent of our authority. Thank you.